And another year comes to an end. Wow, I've been working on this channel for what, 3.5 years now? Well, as per tradition, let me show you in this last video of 2024 the 10 best coins I have added to my personal collection this year. I like to make these videos a collaborative experience, so please, if you have your own list of top 10 coins you have acquired, share it with us in the comment section below, or even better, make a video about it. I would love to know what interesting coins you people have acquired, and this actually gives me a good idea of what everyone enjoys collecting so I can research and do more videos on that. This year's list is predominantly Roman, with a couple of Greek and Byzantine pieces sprinkled here and there. I envy those collections that are so passionate about a single topic that they laser focus on it and end up becoming these incredible scholars on a specific field of numismatics, making serious contributions to these fields sometimes. I think I'm not that kind of person. Too many things call my attention, and as a result, quite a few non-Roman coins enter my collection, as we will see. But my focus is still on Roman imperial coins. My first big numismatic goal when I started collecting was getting one coin of every Roman emperor, from Augustus to Arcadius and Honorius. It's a very common goal for beginners. But the more I studied Roman numismatics, the more I realized the depth and variety of each emperor's coinage. There's this graph called the Dunning-Kruger effect that illustrates how someone feels when learning something new, and it displays in the x-axis one's confidence in themselves, in their abilities, and on the y-axis their actual knowledge on the subject. They first have a jolt of confidence, thinking they know it all. This is called Mount Stupid. Then there's this massive drop of confidence when someone realizes they have just scratched the surface, barely scratched the surface, and they are forced to swallow some heavy doses of humility, only to then slowly and steadily climb the hill of knowledge versus confidence as they truly start learning about a subject and becoming proficient in it. When I started this channel, I was all the way up there on the crest of Mount Stupid. Since then, I have taken the way downhill, and now I believe I'm slowly and steadily climbing that slope of knowledge and confidence. And one of the great things about this hobby is that when you show genuine interest and passion, and in a humble attitude, seek out for help and knowledge from other collectors and from the community in general, you will see yourself surrounded by some incredibly intelligent people, more than willing to help. When making videos of topics I don't know a whole lot about, Greek, Byzantine, and Celtic coins, for example, I generally try looking online for experts on the topic to fact check what I say with them and try to get some of their wisdom. And wow, the support I have received from highly experienced collectors was amazing. Most of them prefer to stay anonymous, and I respect that, but you people know who you are, and thank you for what you do to the coin collecting community at large. And numismatics has this ego problem. There's a lot of people with like inflated egos, and I realized that when you approach experts and everyone in general with a humble attitude of like, I don't know a lot about this subject, could you answer me that? There's this maximum that there are no stupid questions, and it really is the case with these people. Just admit that you don't know a lot about a subject, ask about what you want to know in a humble manner, and people are really, really willing to learn. I was surprised this year with how willing people were to help out. Alright, sorry for going on this tangent. Since it's the holidays, I thought it was a wise thing to show a little bit of gratitude for the people who helped this channel. Okay, we were talking about Roman imperial coins, the focus of my collection. So, as you get this new perspective of how complex the reign of each emperor was, numismatically speaking, different mints, different types of portraits, different coin issues that celebrated different events during an emperor's reign, it's natural that the goal of your collection naturally becomes more complex. It becomes an overall history of the Roman Empire through its coins rather than a simplistic one coin per emperor. And the more you learn about Roman history, it's crazy. The more you realize one coin does not capture enough detail of the richness that was Roman history. As short as a reign of an emperor might have been, it's very hard to say that, oh, one coin represents this emperor's coinage. No, there's always like 2 or 3 that complement this thing. I have also expanded into Roman Republican coins. You see some interesting examples today, not only because they have their own charm, like their own visual charm, but in order to better understand the Roman imperial institutions, particularly how the empire worked in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, you just have to understand how the republic worked before it. And consequently, you need to study its history, and you just end up being carried away by its pretty coins. So how about we just jump straight into the R coins for today? Okay, and we start at number 10 with an Antoninianus of Emperor Probus with a very unique cuirassed bust. Probus is very well liked with coin collectors, although not a lot of people beyond the ancient coin community seem to give him a lot of attention. We don't really know the reasons why, but during his relatively short reign between 276 and 282 AD, we see an explosion of different portrait types. Probus is depicted wearing a cuirass, wearing ceremonial dresses, bare-chested, wearing consular clothes, wearing the skin of the Nemean lion, holding a spear, holding different kinds of shields. The list just goes on and on. He's just such a fun emperor to collect. And add that to the historical sources claiming he was a fairly competent emperor, and you have the perfect mix. Someone who was a good emperor and interesting coins. There's nothing not to like. So what's so special about this coin that it made the list? This is a piece from the Mint of Ticinum in modern Italy that features a special kind of portrait. Cuirassed portraits of Probus aren't rare. This type generally features Probus wearing his battle armor with the upper half of the shield he's carrying seen on the portrait and a spear resting over his shoulder, as if he was marching with his troops. This one, however, it's a scarcer variety in which Probus holds the shield and his spear right in front of his body, like if he was at the front lines right before a battle. I was looking for this type of coin for a while now, and fortunately, here it is. The reverse is relatively common and unremarkable. We have Probus to the left, holding hands with Concordia, the goddess of concord and cooperation. The legends read Concordia Militum, representing a display of unity between the emperor and his troops. A fun reverse, but I need to be honest, I got this coin for the obverse portrait. Alright, number 9. We have this beautiful Republican denarius struck in the year 100 BC, the same year the legendary Julius Caesar was born. This particular coin was struck under the authority of a moneyer called Publius Servilius Rullus. What I like the most about these Republican denarii is that since they can be dated to a specific year, it's like they are the newspapers of the Roman Republic. I like doing research on the year these coins were made, see what was happening in Roman politics of the time, what was going on with like the overall Mediterranean geopolitics, and most of the time you can see some sort of connection between what was put on the coin and the events of that year. It's a wonderful experience of connecting with the past with these coins. So on the obverse of this piece, we have a lovely bust of Minerva, the Roman interpretation of the Greek Athena. Lots of interesting intricacies in this bust, from the helmet sitting over her head, with the long crest at its top falling down her shoulders. We can also see the scales on the armor she's wearing, and at the lower part, There's even like a little shoulder pad for protection as well. Like they really put a lot of attention in this bust. On the reverse, we have the image of Victory riding a chariot pulled by 2 horses, like if she was in a triumphal parade. The horses are very nice in this reverse. They look very organic in this die. You know, sometimes less talented engravers made the horses, which are very common in Republican reverses, a bit stiff, you know, like with like stiff legs and a blocky look to them. These ones, however, look pretty darn good. In the year this coin was made, Gaius Marius was serving his 6th term as a consul. Let's remember Gaius Marius revolutionized the Roman army, transforming it from a levy where citizens fought in positions related to their social status and equipment, and the army was disbanded after the campaign season was over. He transformed it into a professional army, composed of full-time soldiers that could have come from any rank of the social ladder, as long as they were Roman citizens without a criminal record. Basically, he transformed it into the professional war machine that was the Roman legion that created the empire, basically. It was all really thanks to him and his reforms to the army. Alright, let's keep going. Let's head to number 8. And we have a lovely silver nomos from the city of Metapontum. Before the expansion of the Roman Republic and its full conquest of the Italian peninsula, the south of the Italian peninsula was controlled by a series of Greek city-states. This region was even called by the Romans Magna Graecia, the larger outwards Greece, as it was a heavily Hellenized area outside of the original Greek mainland. These cities had quite a strong tradition of high-quality artistry on their coins. And here we have one of such examples. I just love this didrachma, or nomos. It's called both ways. It weighs around 8.8 grams. It's quite a substantial coin. On its obverse, we have this impressive bust of the goddess of the harvest, Demeter, wearing a crown made out of wheat stalks, and she's looking to the left. Despite its somewhat weak strike on the high parts of the design, we can appreciate the hairs full of intricacies. Coins of this city are actually quite common on the market, and they consistently show a very nice style, like a testament to the quality of its engravers. And to top it all off, there's like a blue-purple toning forming around the bust that just makes it beautiful. This is a piece completely out of my main collection focus, but I just love to stop by its tray, pick it up, and admire it for a little bit. It's such a delicate little thing. And you know what? It's not a big, heavy, imposing coin like a tetradrachma, but its weight and especially the thickness of its flan kind of like appeal to me. There's this interesting contrast between the delicate designs and the chunky piece of silver that it is. On the reverse, we have a wheat stalk, which sadly also suffers from the same problem as the obverse, like the high points of the design were not properly struck. We also have a couple of control marks to the left, and finally, on the right, the abbreviation META from Metapontium. It's clearly visible, like it's barely been worn. I generally look for coins that contribute to a certain narrative when I assemble my collection. Like a coin for me must tell a story. But in the case for this one, I have to admit I just let myself get carried away by just how pretty this little thing looks. Number 8 it is. Number 7. We go from a wonderful chunk of silver to an ugly lump of bronze. This is my new oldest Roman coin. The beginning of Roman monetary history is quite unique. You see, copper was very common in the Italian peninsula, so they took quite a while to adopt silver, and for centuries used copper or bronze exclusively. First in just metal lumps, then in metal ingots of standardized weight, and finally in big cast coins. This is one of the last types of cast pieces issued by the Romans before they switched to struck coins, which is what most people know. This is an uncia, or an ounce, struck between 225 and 217 BC, so just before the time of the Second Punic War, and just before the creation of the denarius. It's a super interesting piece of early Roman money. It is very heavy for its denomination as well, 19 grams. Considering this was one of the smallest coins of their monetary standard, that's pretty insane. Like, this was worth 1/12 of an as. It was small pocket change despite its heavy size. Like, imagine how much metal you would have to carry around in the market to, like, conduct a big transaction. Like, what? Do you need a wheelbarrow to carry all of your bronze? Being a cast coin, it is quite crude in its appearance. The casting process didn't allow the same kind of high-resolution images achieved on struck coins. The metal needs to enter like the cavity of the cast mold. It needs to flow to the areas where it's supposed to go and then cool down in the crevices of the design. So it needs space to do so. Hence, the simple images we have here. And what do we see here? Well, a simple helmeted bust of the goddess Roma looking left. And on the lower right part of the design, a denomination mark, a little pellet symbolizing one uncia. As for the reverse, we have the prow of a ship. This was called a rostrum. It was not only the ship's prow, but it also had like a kind of beak with a heavy bronze tip. It was used to ram other ships, make holes below the waterline, and sink the enemy. Once again, on the lower right side, there's a pellet indicating the denomination. I was looking for one of those cast bronze pieces for the longest time now, but they are relatively scarce, surprisingly expensive, and bronze disease sadly seems to be an issue with the type. This particular example does have a somewhat porous patina, but thank God it looks stable and it has no signs of active corrosion. And it has this lovely emerald green patina on it. Lovely coin. Looks ugly, but very important historically. Number 7 it is. Number 6, a denarius of Mark Antony. I've decided to be a little bit flexible in my imperial coin set and go a little bit further back, like beyond the Roman imperial period, and also include coins with the portraits of the members of the Second Triumvirate: Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, Lepidus, and Mark Antony. You know, after Julius Caesar dared to put his living image on coins, other important figures of Roman politics decided to do the same. So this is amongst some of the very first coins to feature portraits featuring living Romans in it. The story of the Second Triumvirate and the fall of the Republic is also fascinating. So far, I already had one denarius of Octavian. I'm still missing a coin from Lepidus. These ones are the most expensive, sadly. This is gonna hurt. And here is my portrait piece of Mark Antony. It is not in pristine condition, but we can clearly appreciate it's the portrait of Mark Antony with his strong jawline and his wavy hair. It's a really charming little piece, despite the strike weakness and the relative amount of wear in it. It's also nice that the Marcus Antonius on the legends is still perfectly readable, showing who's featured on the coin. This type was struck in 42 BC at a military mint, likely in the area of modern-day Greece, as Antony prepared for its inevitable confrontation with Octavian. Maybe we can forgive the flaws on this coin, considering it was struck at a military mint, so the mint workers were most likely not working in ideal conditions, and problems with the final production of the coins were to be expected. On the reverse, we have the image of a temple, and inside it, a portrait of the sun god, a very popular deity with the soldiers. And since this coin was struck with the purpose of paying Antony's troops, this is the perfect deity to feature on such coins. Well, maybe Mars would also be adequate. Of course, knowing it was struck around the Roman military camp and it was once in the possession of a real Roman legionary makes such coins that little bit more special. Like a real Roman legionary once owned this very same coin. How cool is that? I have shown this coin in a previous video on Mark Antony's coinage, and it once belonged to a collector friend of mine. So basically there's nothing not to like about this coin. And it proudly sits at number 6. We're halfway there. Number 5. Now, the obverse of this denarius of Emperor Trajan is relatively unremarkable. It's a very typical Trajan draped portrait from his mid to late reign. It has a considerable amount of wear to it. It shows the normal titles you would expect from Trajan at that time. Like this particular piece was from 114 AD, so it reads Germanicus, Dacicus, conqueror of the Germans, conqueror of the Dacians, as well as a series of civic titles. You know, Trajan loved to put a lot of things in his coins. So far, nothing out of the ordinary for this coin. But as we go to the reverse, then things get interesting. And what do we have here? Well, this is Trajan's column, a monument you can still visit today in Rome. It is a 38-meter tall column commissioned by Trajan, and all over its surfaces is engraved the story of Trajan's military campaigns against the Dacians. This is one of the most impressive Roman imperial monuments because of the sheer level of intricacies in the engravings. In fact, a good deal of information on the typical Roman soldiers' equipment and the army's organization and routine comes from the engravings in this column. It is a direct source of how life in the high imperial army looked like. And it's crazy to think that the column is still there, standing tall and proud at the center of modern Rome 2,000 years later. And it's even crazier to think this coin and that column were both made in Rome around the same time. And you know what? When you've been a collector for a few years, it's inevitable that feeling of like, wow, this is so old and amazing. This feeling slowly fades away as you get used to handling ancient coins. Well, not with this guy. I felt like I was handling my first ancient coin all over again. This coin is oozing with history, and it proudly sits at number 5 for this year. It's not the best looking of the type, but oh boy, it is a fascinating coin. Let's keep going. Number 4. And yes, it is a Probus once again, and it is a cuirassed bust Probus once again. Some mints produced more of this portrait type than others during Probus's reign. One mint that produced very few of this type was Lugdunum, modern-day Lyon, France. And that is a shame, because Lugdunum is probably my favorite mint for its engraving style. I really like its unique portraits, its very fine details on the bust. The engravers from this mint were quite careful with the portraits, and the silvering on these coins is generally very resistant. But sadly, cuirassed busts from the mint of Lugdunum are always very rare and prohibitively expensive. And I don't know if maybe a hoard of this type has been recently dispersed, or if some collector sold their collection or what, but this year I noticed a certain increase in the number of these coins on the market, and consequently the price dropped to a level I would consider fair. And well, here it is, a coin I was hunting for years. Lovely level of detail. The shield has a little horse drawn on it. The borders of the shield have a nice pattern to it. The helmet is full of details, and the face has this very delicate style, so typical of Lugdunum. Lovely, just a lovely coin. The reverse is a bit less impressive. Well, it's quite mediocre, frankly. Here we have a portrait of the goddess of abundance, and it reads Abundantia Augustoris. We have the image of the goddess pouring the contents of a cornucopia out, And under her, we have the number 4, the number of the workshop that produced this particular coin. I'm very happy for this coin, a major target for the collection, finally in my trays. And finally, we get to the podium. At number 3, we have a gold coin. This is a Byzantine solidus of Emperor Phocas, who reigned from 602 to 610 AD. Phocas was, well, he was a bastard. He was a man of the army, and he managed to depose the previous emperor, taking advantage of the discontent amongst the troops, who were being overworked and not properly paid. Phocas, however, managed to be an even worse emperor. He was very autocratic, self-serving, appointed friends and relatives to important and well-paid positions in the imperial administration, and basically made things worse for everyone. Now that I'm hearing myself talk, Phocas sounds a lot like our current politicians. This mismanagement led to his own downfall and his execution after just 8 years as emperor. His portrait on the obverse is quite interesting. We see a return of a bearded emperor, a look not seen in Roman emperors for nearly 300 years, when Constantine the Great re-established the tradition of clean-shaven emperors. Apart from his beard, we can see the traditionally Byzantine type of front-facing portrait, different to the old Roman style of emperors being depicted laterally. The emperor wears a lovely crown with small strings of precious stones hanging down from the crown down at his face, and there's a nice little cross at the top of his crown. The emperor also holds a globe with a cross. This is called a globe cruciger on his right hand, and his robes are kept in place with a nice jeweled fibula, which we can see just to the right side of his hand holding the globe. The legends are quite simple. They read, Dominus Noster, our Lord, Phocas, Perpetuus Augustus, our perpetuous emperor. On the reverse, there's an old homage to the pagan gods of Rome. We have the goddess Victory. I mean, some argue these should be interpreted as angels, but if we look at Roman coinage from before the conversion of Christianity and after it, the image of Victory stays pretty consistent throughout the centuries, and she's commonly featured on coins continuously. And it's not like she's the only pagan goddess to show up on Byzantine coins. Smaller bronze coins sometimes show the goddess Tyche as well, the goddess protector of cities. So this is likely a case of iconographic inertia rather than a blatant display of paganism or some sort of religious syncretism. Victory is seen holding in one hand a staff with the Tauro symbol, also called a staurogram, and on the other, she holds another globe cruciger, like the emperor. The legends read, Victoria Augustorum, to the victory of our emperors. Number 2, a big, beautiful Greek silver tetradrachma. This is a piece from the Seleucid Empire, struck during the reign of Antiochus VIII, between 121 and 113 BC. Now, after Alexander's death in the 4th century BC, the Seleucid Empire was the largest and most powerful of his successor states, but by the end of the 2nd century BC, it was a pale shadow of its former self, restricted basically to the city of Antioch, where this coin was made, and its surrounding areas. Fortunately for us, the skill of making coins was not affected by their decline as a state, as we can see from this very visually appealing tetradrachma. On the obverse, we have the face of Antiochus, with what a nose this man had. In fact, back then everyone also noticed it, and he was given the nickname Gryphus, or hook nose. Just like most Seleucid kings of the time, he came to power after a violent coup, and he was toppled and killed after another coup. He was, however, relatively popular with the people and the elites, and some of the parties in his court were so lavish that he ended up having a bit of a reputation of a degenerate. Apparently, he also sent his guests home after his parties on camels, like an ancient version of calling an Uber to take your friends home. As for the reverse, we have this really nice full body image of Zeus, holding his staff on one hand and a star on his other outstretched arm. Serving as a border to the reverse, there's this lovely olive wreath, and inside the wreath, there's some surprisingly long legends in 3 lines which read, "Of King Antiochus the Illustrious." The market for big Greek silver coins just keeps going up in value, sadly. But I mean, I understand why. These are such visually impressive coins. Even the weight alone, 17 grams of silver on your hand, commands quite a lot of respect. Fortunately, skillful engravers were also assigned to make the smaller bronze denominations, and you can assemble a collection of Seleucid bronzes very affordably. It's a part of the market I think is still underappreciated. And finally, for number 1, we have a gold solidus from Emperor Valentinian the Great. Solidi from the late Roman Empire are some of the most affordable Roman coins you can get in gold, but most of them have that facing portrait with the emperor looking at you holding a shield and a spear. And although these are also interesting, they just don't have the regal look of these earlier side profile busts. Valentinian was a tough man, and he lived through some hard times. The empire was fighting continuous wars all over its borders, usurpers were trying to carve their pieces of the empire to themselves, and there's a reason Valentinian is called Valentinian the Great. He fared surprisingly well during these times, winning battle after battle, curbing corruption from provincial governors, and calming religious tensions that were getting to a boiling point. He was one of the last truly capable and competent emperors before the fall of the Western Empire. Sadly for Valentinian, another thing that was boiling and he did not manage to control was his boiling hot temper. When negotiating terms of a truce with a Germanic embassy, he got so outraged from their offer that he started screaming at the embassy and died of a stroke on the spot. Wow, imagine being that pissed off. So what do we have here? Lovely portrait of Valentinian. I mean, these were not realistic looking by that time, but still quite nice. Quite a jowly portrait here, no? I would even dare say the emperor looks a bit chubby in this portrait, but please don't tell him that, he might get angry. He wears the royal diadem, like all late Roman emperors, and the legends, struck in these very sharp, tiny little letters, read Dominus Noster Valentinianus Pius Felix Augustus. On the reverse, we have a really nice full-body image of the emperor wearing his military dress. On one hand, he holds a small victory, she's crowning him with a laurel wreath, and on the other, he holds a standard with the Chi Rho, one of the first symbols of Christianity, initially adopted by Constantine. That's quite interesting, huh? The empire would only officially convert to Christianity a few years later under Theodosius. And here we have the emperor holding on one hand a Christian symbol, and with the other a pagan one. That's actually quite fitting of Valentinian, as he was relatively tolerant in religious matters. Around the image of the emperor, the legends read Restitutor Republicae, the restorer of the republic, which actually sounds very weird to think that the empire still considered itself a republic. This was of course in name only, particularly in the late empire when it was actually more akin to an absolutist monarchy. And at the very bottom, the mint mark, SMN Epsilon. Sacra Moneta Nicomedia Epsilon, the 5th workshop of the Mint of Nicomedia. A wonderful little gold coin that will be in my collection for years for sure, and number 1 for this year. And here we have them, my 10 best coins for 2023. Now I want to hear from you. Let us know your top 10 coins for this year. And well, that's another year behind us. I hope you stay with me for 2025. Let's keep growing our collections together. Let's keep talking about amazing coins, growing this community. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me in this journey. We will meet again here in 2025. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.